Coming up this morning, are the Saints too old, or is there enough young talent to balance it out and give hope for the future? Training camp begins in 9 days. What will be the key storylines? Are some of those super tough teams at the top of the Saints' schedules, maybe we're overrating them just a little bit. Maybe it's not as tough as we think. Maybe we're just trying to look for reasons for optimism. Hey, that's not a bad thing. We asked these questions of WWL Sports Director Doug Mouton, and we wrap it up in today's Extra Point with a tribute to a local football star who shockingly and suddenly passed away this weekend. It's all coming up next on the Dattitude podcast.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.
Where are you at, New Orleans? And hello to all my friends out there. Going to start it this way. What a weekend. We don't do politics on this show, but it is tough to go without mentioning what we all saw on Saturday. I was in the 8th grade when President Reagan was shot, and I still remember the moment. 43 years later, that's the moment. That's what it had, the impact it had on my life for sure. Yeah. So just all of you will remember July 13th, 2024, the same way decades from now. So no matter your affiliation, no matter your opinion on the former president of the United States, I think we can all be grateful that the tragedy this past weekend wasn't larger than it was. Had to mention it. This is a sports show. It is what it is, but thought it was important to mention it, and we did. With that, this is Dattitude, episode number 253, presented by Evangeline Securities for a Monday, July 15th, 2024. I am your host, Jim Derry. Whether you're watching on one of our NOLA.com social media channels or listening on demand to the podcast, as always, I thank you for being a part of the Dattitude family. Can't wait to hear your comments and questions today. We had a nice number of them on Friday, and our return back to the podcast scene. As you know, I took a little summer break. For those of you who missed Friday's show, you can go back and catch it. We had on Hart Pisani, who is a local sports writer and podcast host himself. Hart, I'm telling you, check out the pod. I think episode number 5 of the 6-part series is coming out soon. When the lights go out, we had a lot of good things to say. If you missed that, we're going to talk about a lot of the same things today, but maybe a little different spin. You can see the questions we're going to be asking of Doug Mouton in a little bit. We're asking if the Saints are too old. Training camp just 9 days away. And I know a lot of you revolve your calendars around when training camp begins. So there you go, 9 days. You can be a part of the show, as we said, by typing in your comment on YouTube, Facebook, or X. We ask that if you haven't already done so, to subscribe to our YouTube page. You'll always know when we go live. When we're on the air live, as well as have access to all our shows and short takes. And you can get in touch with me on X at Jim Derry Jr. or via email, jderry@theadvocate.com. What is going on, my friends, this morning? It's my friend Jerry is here. And indeed, R.I.P. Jacoby Jones. That is our extra point this afternoon. That is how we're going to end the show. We have a lot to talk about before then, though. Jacoby Jones, a local star here in the New Orleans area. In case you didn't see it over the weekend, he passed away on Sunday. 40 years old. 40 years old. From all accounts, it looks like he died in his sleep. In fact, he had just turned 40 on Thursday. So we're gonna have a little tribute to him at the end of the show today. All kinds of stuff going on. Gabe's excited that the NCAA, it's the Madden-like version. It's the version of Madden for college football. And I know that I've been reading on Twitter that I think it's like 7 or 8 years since the last one came out or whatever. I don't know. I have seen little previews, and I'm not into video games. Okay. I'm not into video games at all. I used to be 11 years, Gabe says. So I'm not into video games. I used to be. As an old man, that's not my thing anymore. But I will say this. I have seen little clips and highlights of this thing. It's incredible. I mean, the stadium designs of these things, for that alone, it's worth taking a look at. I know they had a preview version that came out earlier last week, and people were paying, I don't know, some ridiculous amount of money to get it like 3 days before everybody else. That is just crazy. But that comes out today. What's up, Rocky? Thank you for joining the show. Doug Mouton on in just a few minutes. Also, the home run derby is tonight. So it is that weird time in sports. Okay, if you're not a baseball fan, then you don't care anyway. For you, there's a lot of you. There's 2 seasons. There's football season, there's basketball season, and then you disappear off the sports map, and you can't wait football to start again. Not me. I'm a huge baseball fan. But I'm not an all-star game fan. I'm not a home run derby fan. I'll probably have it on in the background. Tonight's my poker night. It'll probably be on in the background. Will I be paying attention? I don't know. How much do y'all pay attention to that stuff? It's too hard for me to pay attention to. Gabe said it's a fun event to bet on. That's true. I mean, maybe you could put a couple dollars on somebody and enjoy it. I don't know. SEC Media Days begin today. In fact, they begin right now. They've already started. I think Greg Sankey was talking earlier this morning, and if I'm not mistaken, I think Brian Kelly's on right now. So the LSU was first. SEC Media Days lasting for 4 days in Dallas. I think Garrett Nussmeier was talking. Hal Perkins was up there as well. That means, look, when you see SEC Media Days and you training camp right around the corner, for all intents and purposes, for us here in the media, it is football season. Again, Doug coming on in a couple. We've all taken our vacations. We're done. So I don't have another legit break until Mardi Gras. That is my next legit break. So I might ask Doug a quick question on Media Days, but really we're gonna this show is 90% Saints today. We'll get to that and all that in just a minute. Again, we're gonna wrap it up with Jacoby Jones. But before we get to the rest of the show, let me continue the story about our friends at Evangeline Securities. Of course, you know this already. If you've watched this show, you know about my friends at Evangeline. They are a company that can help you decide if it's the right time to sell your business. And just as importantly, they can figure out what that business is worth. That's right. It's not like Uncle Joe down the street. Oh, he knows somebody who knows somebody. And his aunt's grandma, don't forget about Mabel. She says your business is worth like, I don't know, 500 grand. No, stop talking to people that don't know what they're talking about. Evangeline Security is what you want to know. For many who are running your family business, it might be a decision y'all have been thinking about for quite some time. If that's you or someone who is near and dear to you, have them reach out to Evangeline's founding and managing partners, Nick Braden and Ron Hemelt, because they will maximize the value for your family-owned and privately held business. And they do that by scheduling a complimentary valuation. By the way, Nick and Ron both grew up in New Orleans. Yeah, they went to schools that wouldn't even think about taking me, both in high school and college, by the way. And after some time at those big-time business schools and then the hustle and bustle of New York City, they came home to help people here, the people they love, the people who need them. They have offices on Poydras Street, you know that one, and in Lafayette. More on this later in the show, but in the meantime, you can check them out at www.evangelinesecurities.com. All right, Saints, what do we think? You know what? Forget my mumbo jumbo. I'm going to let him finish dressing up his shirt here. You know what? Maybe how does that look, y'all? All right. Let's bring in Doug. Douglas, how are you?
I am good. Yeah, I was just, you said 11:10. I am never early and I'm never late. So 11:10, I'm ready, but not a minute before.
Well, you TV guys live by the clock. I mean, you go on at 5:07 and 20 seconds and whatever. And a lot of times
5:20 on the nose is the T's for 5:23 is the 5 o'clock sports.
And you're stepping into the shot probably at 5:19 and 50 seconds.
5:19 and 50, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Just don't be 2 seconds late, ever.
You know what's funny is I always talk about what you guys wear underneath the table. You know, you got this.
Oh no! Now
You stand
I
up.
have to wear
So,
pants.
yeah, you stand up, so you actually have to wear. But I mean, there are so many out there. I'm not going to name any names. Eric Asher.
I mean, I did it for 30 years.
Those guys, they might as well be wearing their drawers under the side. You just don't know. It's a scary
I
thought.
never put the coat and tie on until the news begins. I've been
That's
shorts.
because, you want to make sure that you don't get a drop of like if you're drinking a Diet Coke or whatever.
Especially me.
Yeah, me too. All right. Look, before we get to the Saints real quick, SEC Media Days, your thoughts. Look, to me, this is kind of the start of the college football season, right? And we were joking about the college football Madden-like game that's coming out today. SEC Media Days, this is when you can really kind of get pumped up.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I heard you say a minute ago, this is like all our vacations are done. Like it's football season, and it certainly is for me. Yeah, look, I'm looking at I feel like Jim Derry. I'm looking at the odds to get into the playoff. And look, LSU's like 8th or 9th in those odds, depending on what book you use. Like LSU's got a great shot to get into the college football playoff. Your burden to be perfect is not so great anymore. You could lose one or two for sure and get into the playoff. I am so looking forward to this college football season, and I don't see any reason LSU won't at least be in the hunt until the final game of the regular season, and I certainly think they're good enough to be in that 12.
Right now, plus 120 at DraftKings to make the playoffs, which means they're just slightly less than even money to make the playoff, and I think that's about a right number. So 40 to 45% or so. Hey, that's a good number. That's not bad. And I think, look, it's all going to depend, right, on whether they can play defensively better than they have, and of course, Garrett Nussmeier. And I think Nussmeier will be fine. I think the running game will be fine. I think the offense is fine. It's all about whether they can stop people. So
yeah, no, 100%. And look, that you mentioned the guys going to SEC Media Days. And look, I didn't realize it until I looked it up. And I knew Harold Perkins had a better freshman year than he had a sophomore year. But look, Mason Taylor is there too. Had a better freshman year. Had 38 catches his freshman year, 36 his sophomore year. In a year you would have thought he would have exploded. Those are two guys, both with enormous upside that did not get tapped into last year. LSU's got crazy talent. They've got a solid offensive line, which is why I think Nussmeier will be just fine. Yeah, it's all going to come down to how good that defense can be. And what's super interesting about those odds is that Alabama's odds to get in are not quite as good as LSU. So if LSU's 8th or 9th, Alabama's like 10th or 11th in the odds to get in. So like all that I find super interesting.
Real quick, Harold Perkins, I think the biggest problem for him last year was that they were moving him around all over the place. Yeah. Just find a place to put him and let him do his thing, and I think he'll be fine. As far as the odds go, interestingly enough, and I mentioned this last week, LSU is number 7. They're ranked 7th if you go by odds makers on who can win the national championship. They are 7th. So that is that. I found you talk about odds that are interesting. The odds makers know more than sports writers. Okay.
And you know what? When you say that, last year, I remember someone asking me, are they really going to play Jaden Daniels over Nussmeier? And
they were still talking about that, right?
And I said, of course. But the odds, while there was some crazy doubt in Louisiana, the odds makers before the season began had Jaden Daniels number 2 in the Heisman race. When people in Louisiana weren't that bought in, the odds makers knew when a lot of people in Louisiana who had seen him all year didn't quite get it. Yes, what I'm saying is I'm agreeing with you. Sometimes the odds makers, when you take bias out of it, see things plainly. And they saw Jaden Daniels as a legit Heisman candidate, which he obviously was. And they see LSU as a legit contender to get into the college football playoff. And like I said, there's so many variables. Look, Tulane's got a shot to get there.
For sure.
2 years ago, they would have gotten there. So
plus 1,000. They're a plus 1,000 to make the playoff, which is 10-1. And I think that is a ridiculously good value on the Green Wave.
I knew you would.
I think there is, and I legitimately think that there is a path for Tulane to go undefeated. Their schedule is so easy.
Yeah.
They certainly, I'm not saying they will, but I'm saying Boy, could you imagine John Summerall in his first year taking this team to an undefeated team? Because if they go undefeated, they're probably going to make the playoff.
Oh, of course they would. Yeah, without question. I mean, the playoff has to take at least one team from the non.
And maybe we'll take two.
Yeah, and they could take two for sure. And look, he had great success at Troy in year one, and Willie Fritz did not leave the cupboard bare.
No doubt about it. All right, let's get to the New Orleans Saints. And I'm not trying to single out Cam. And look, I know Cam sees everything on Twitter. So he may not comment on it, but he's going to see this. And I'm not trying to single out Cam Jordan, but he is kind of the symbol of what we talk about when we ask the question, is this team too old? And, I went through the roster, and there are 9 starters on the Saints, and that includes Headley. So 8 if you don't want to count the punter, and 7 if you don't want to count Derek Carr, because really 33 for a quarterback is not that old. But still, 7 starters on this team. And then there's another one, Logan Patrick, who they just signed, who's 30, who are 30 or older. And to me, last year, the team went into the season as the oldest team in the NFL by starter-wise. They averaged 28.2 years old going into last season as starters. I just don't know how sustainable there is. Obviously, Doug, there's a lot of young talent on this team, and young talent that we look forward to seeing how they do and how they progress. But there's a lot of old talent too, and you're talking about a team that's projected to be average at best.
Yeah, and look, that's the one thing. If you want to take the negative side of looking at this season, at 9-8, how do you get better? Either you get better players or you get your players to play better. They didn't go out and make major roster additions that give you spectacular confidence that they're going to get over some kind of hump. And when so much of the team is over 30, look, Demario Davis has been great. He's not going to be better this year than he has been in the past. And you could say that about all of the guys that are 30 plus. So where do you make improvement on this team? Obviously, the Saints are counting on a new offensive system making a difference. But from a player standpoint, it's hard to look at this team and say, this is how we get better. Certainly the offensive line, which has to be the rock of your team, has major questions starting the season. Not to say they're going to fail, but they have major questions at the start of the season. So we'll see. How you get better is the one thing I look at the Saints and try to figure out how you're going to be better. They don't look like a bad team. And I hate when people use the word bad with the Saints. They haven't been bad. They've been mediocre. 9-8 is not bad. It's not good. It's mediocre. And I don't see how you get out of mediocre right now. But I'd love to be wrong, and I've been wrong before.
Well, and look, I've said this before, at least in the offseason, I'm going to try to keep it as positive as possible. And if there is a positive, if they can be decent, okay, if this offensive line can be even, let's say, ranked 20th, and I think that's the ceiling for this offensive line. If they can, and I'm not trying to be mean, I'm just being realistic, because right now I think they're last.
Probably right on the money.
I think they're last right now. So we know where the floor is. They're on the floor. But if they can find a way to, with a new offensive line coach and a new offensive coordinator, if they can find a way to be average or a little worse than average, the good news is then they're very young across there, because you're not counting Ryan Ramczyk, and everybody else is either under the age of 30 or well under the age of 30.
Right. You're counting on Nick Saldiveri. It's a guy they're hoping will win a starting job. We have not seen anything from him. And then the first round draft pick at tackle and Trevor Penning at tackle. Man, you are counting on. I mean, that's 3 spots. I think you're fine. You're fine at one tackle. Penning is still the question, and Saldiveri is obviously a question until he does something. Then they got a bunch of guys, a bunch of veterans, guys who have bounced around the league that you could plug into 1 or 2 of those spots. But you're talking about guys who were on the free agent market long after the big part of free agency was gone, and that's who you might be counting on. Certainly, if you get one injury, that's who you're counting on. It is a paper thin offensive line, and that's what you're counting on. But yeah, look, I hate to be pessimistic ever, preseason or regular season. And I'm not pessimistic. I'm just not super optimistic.
Well, I'm just going to say some people call me Derry Downer. I'm going to start. Maybe I should call you Dougie Downer.
Yeah, no, I'm not down. Like, I think they're going to be okay. I think they're going to, like, I look at this team, and I think if you pick it wins other than 8 or 9, I don't know.
I'm
That's just
picking
not
wins
betting
other
on
than
what
8 or
you've
9.
seen. What's that?
I'm
You're
picking
going
wins.
7?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that's
okay,
up from that's up from me before. I said 6 before I went on vacation, and then last week, my first week back, first full week back, I did 272 predictions. I went through the schedule of all 32 teams and picked every game.
Man, you got some time.
And no, I had to do it for work, and I think that I came out with 7 and 10. So I changed I upped it from 6 and 11. That's where I'm at right now. Who knows? Maybe I'll up it to 8 and 9 before the season's done. I doubt it, but it's possible.
No, I love it. And the fool's gold of training camp. I think all of us need to do a better job of not watching the Saints practice against the Saints and suddenly getting more optimistic.
Oh man, the hype over OT. Look, I love some of my friends in the local media and in the local podcast world, and I'm not going to mention any names here. People know who I'm talking about, but incredible hype over OTAs and what they saw at OTAs is absurd.
Well, some people are trying to sell subscriptions, and the way you get people to buy is to say what they want to hear.
Jesus.
Yes.
I mean, come on. Well, so-and-so looks so good at it. Who cares? I mean, half those guys playing at OTAs aren't even going to be on a final roster, and you're not going to see them more than 20% of the snaps. I mean, who cares what you see at OTAs? I don't know. Yeah. Going off on a tangent. It's early on this Monday morning here with Doug Mouton, WWL-TV sports director, here on this Monday morning. We're talking about the Saints. We're talking about whether this team is too old. I don't know. They're again, and I use Cam Jordan there as kind of the poster child. But one thing I'll say is, you're looking for old. That's where the oldest part of this team kind of is, right? I mean, you got Cam Jordan, you got Passanio, you got Nathan Shepard, I think is 30 or 31. I mean, the defensive line's average at best right now anyway. I'm not trying to throw any shade on them, but, that could be another problem area as well. They couldn't stop the run last year.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean, look, I do think they have upgraded linebacker. I think they got 3 linebackers who can really play, and I think that's going to certainly help against the run.
One of those guys is 35 or 36 years old.
Sure, although he's Demario Davis is the guy you would never know it by his actual numbers. You would never know it just by his sprint speed. You wouldn't know that. And look, I think you can do some things with those guys. Bring in one of them in pressure packages. You can use all three of those guys in passing situations, rush one of them, play the other 2 in coverage, mix it up, bring different looks. I think there's some things they can do, again, to be pretty good. I think they're better than poor at almost everywhere across the board, except offensive line is a real question spot. I think the defensive line is probably a little. I like the defensive line maybe a little better than what you just said, and I like the linebackers. And the secondary.
Well, I love Willie Gay. Okay. I love Willie Gay.
I do too. And look, I like the 3 of them on the field. I think you're going to see a defense. I read something yesterday. It said, "Will Pete Werner lose snaps?" I don't think so. I think you're going to see the 3 of them on the field more, and your 6th DB, and sometimes even your nickel is the one that's going to lose snaps, and you're going to play those 3 because all 3 of those guys can cover, and all 3 of those guys can rush the passer. Even though Willie Gay hasn't done a ton of that, there's no reason he couldn't. I like that group. I'm excited to see that group. I'm excited to see how they play differently on defense because they went out and got Willie Gay with a mission. And look, Willie Gay was one of the smart free agent signings because the way to attack free agency, if you're looking for bargains, is to go to the most talented teams in football and poach the guys that they wish they could keep, but can't just because they have to pay their superstars. And Willie Gay was the definition of that. And he was the guy the Chiefs would have loved to have kept. But on a Super Bowl team, you can only pay so many guys. And the Saints cashed in on what was a bargain.
I don't disagree with that. A-Town, thank you. Good to be back. Thank you for coming back. A-Town and everyone else, that our regulars that are all with us and we talked to this morning already. One thing I will say about Willie Gay, maybe you won't see a ton of all 3 of them on the field, but one thing I do like is I think what you need to do when I get that Demario Davis doesn't play 36, but you're probably at a point where you don't want him to be on the field for every snap like he's been, right?
Right.
And so maybe it cuts into Pete Werner just a little bit, but I also think it cuts into Damari Davis. But that's a good thing.
I think
I think you want to be able to take him off the field at different times, and I think this allows you to do that.
No, and like I said, I do think you're going to see more 3 linebackers than we've seen in the last 6 years.
I think you're right.
Just because that's really that's where they went out and added, and it seemed like added with purpose. They did it early in free agency, which he wasn't like a guy just sitting around. It was like, oh, you know what? We want to do this. Let's go get this guy to be able to do this. I do think you're going to see a little bit of a change on defense with that to fix what you brought up. I mean, you think we know the numbers and where the Saints weren't strong. Clearly, they know it better than we do. And I do think that this was an effort to get better against the run because you got 3 athletic linebackers and to improve and mix up your pass rush better.
No doubt about it. I agree with you wholeheartedly there. So, look, I think the defense is okay. I just don't, everyone's just kind of glossing over them, assuming that they're going to be they're the strength of the team. And, let's be realistic. Last year, these units were ranked the same. They were both 12th in the NFL. The offense was 12th in the NFL. Defense was 12th in the NFL, which goes to show you how much they underperformed with a 9-8 record. Consider they had the easiest schedule in the NFL, and they were 12th on both sides of the ball. They should have easily been an 11-win team. But that's neither here nor there. But people keep bashing the offense, and I get why you're doing it this year because you have no offensive line. But it kills me. It bothers me. And I'm no Derek Carr lover, but at the same time, I'm so sick of people just bashing on Derek Carr and hating on Derek Carr and assuming, I see all these rankings where he's like 20th, 21st, and 22nd by some. What are these people smoking? He was the 12th best quarterback by rating, by yards in the NFL last year. There's no reason to think he won't be at least 12th again unless he gets killed by his offensive line.
Yeah. And yeah, look, statistically, he was fine. Now, I will say this too. The Saints did a lot of I remember the Rams game as the poster child where they picked up a lot of yards. They had a great fourth quarter after the game was decided, and that can certainly skew stats.
That's an outlier, though, I think. I agree. I mean,
there were several games that big fourth quarters after the game was out of reach. But look, I think what you got out of Derek Carr was his upside. I saw one metric that had him 10th best in the NFL last season. I think, and that's about his ceiling. So I think I don't
disagree with that.
Good. You don't?
No, I do not. I don't disagree with that. 10's ceiling.
But he was pretty good. I think you signed him to be better than what you had. You got a pretty good quarterback, and I think he delivered on that. Yeah, look, you've got way more fundamental problems on offense with this offensive line than Carr. Carr is not what I'm worried about on this offense going into this year. And yeah, look, if he gets destroyed, no quarterback's going to play like that. You saw how much better he played when the offensive line played well. Every quarterback is that way, but certainly he was. And to me, that's what so much of this season comes down to how that 5 guys play together. And Eric McCoy gets hurt in training camp, and you're gonna get much more pessimistic outlooks going forward. But
don't even if Eric. I'm going to discuss that writing scripts before games. I mean, that's where I am with that. I mean, that leads into my next question, which is, what are your top storylines heading into camp besides the one that we've already mentioned? Give me your top 2, at least right off the bat, because, going every season is different, but this season in the grand scheme of things maybe isn't much different than going into last year. I mean, you're going into it likely without Ryan Ramczyk, so that's a big difference right there. But other than that, I mean, what are you looking at that maybe we haven't talked about?
Well, it's nothing that we haven't talked about because I think it's the things we have talked about. Look, to me, the big things are, and it's mostly on the offensive side, is how that offensive line plays. It's how you rearrange, what this offense is going to look like. We haven't seen actual plays in a game. Eric McCoy said at one of the OTAs, and there weren't a lot of players in the locker room, so I wound up talking to Eric McCoy for probably 20 minutes. And this offense, the Clint Kubiak offense, is built to cash in on the athleticism of offensive linemen. Tali Fuaga should be a star in this offensive system, and Eric McCoy should be a star in this offensive system. And I'll get to Trevor Penning in a second. Trevor Penning should be better in this offensive system. It's meant to get offensive linemen moving and in space and to show their athleticism. Trevor Penning, the reason he was a first-round draft pick is
there's no question he's athletic.
He's a ridiculous natural athlete. Where Trevor Penning has struggled is in traditional pass sets. Arden Key destroyed him in a traditional pass blocking situation. In theory, this offense will do less traditional pass blocking sets than most NFL offenses and the offense of last year. In theory, that should help Penning. But the big beneficiary should be Tali Fuaga and Eric McCoy, because they are incredibly athletic offensive linemen. I want to see a play. I want to see how the offense actually looks on the field and not the theory of the offense. To me, that's a big training camp thing. How the offensive line fits together, I think, is huge. How the Saints secondary shakes out, I think, with all the Lattimore talk and with Jonathan Abram probably now playing starters worth of snaps, I think that's super interesting how that plays out. Although I do think, look, if you put Lattimore, Paulson Adebo, to me, is like this far away from moving into all-pro, maybe not quite all-pro, but certainly Pro Bowl type ability. In theory, you've got two cornerbacks that could be, in theory, an elite set. I want to see how all that shakes out with questions at safety. So, look, at Nick Saldiveri, I think, is a huge piece of this puzzle, whether you want him to be or not, because the Saints sure want him to be a starter, and we've seen nothing out of this guy. And I don't think we're going to see anything really until you get to the preseason games with Saldiveri. So there's a bunch of questions, but what you said, this season feels like a continuation of last season. I would agree with that 100%. This doesn't feel like a rebuild or a restart. This feels like the next year of Dennis Allen. And when you're to the point where getting over this mediocre hump, either it's going to happen or it doesn't. And I'm wondering what happens in the organization if they go 8-9 or 9-8.
How hot is his seat? That's a question, right?
Yeah, that's I don't know the answer to that. I think it's I don't think it's cold. I don't think he's I saw a listing of college football coaches, and it was like 0 to 5. How hot is your seat? 0 being like you're locked in, and it had Brian Kelly at a 0. And I'm even in Baton Rouge. I don't know if you're ever at a 0, but Dennis Allen, I don't know, by that metric, he's at a 2 or a 3. I'm just not sure. Now, fans have him at a 4.5, but
you've got him at a 2 or a 3 hot?
No. By the way the Saints think. You know what I mean? Like, it's
by
not
the way the Saints think.
I'm not saying by what I think should happen or what fans think should happen. Like, I don't know. They love Dennis Allen. They want him to succeed. You heard Mickey Loomis in the offseason comparing him to what he's done early to Chuck Noll and Tom Landry. They have complete buy-in on him, and I don't know what it takes for the management of the organization to turn on him. Would they turn on him with another 8-9 or 9-8? I don't know.
Oh, they have to. 9-8, no. I think he would survive a 9-8.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. You see your face? Because you don't really know what they think. You know what you think, but you don't know what they think.
Look, I've been a little harsh when it comes to Dennis Allen. Okay, and I'm trying to be as positive, and I know I keep saying this, but it's true. I mean, there's a part of me inside, Doug, that has and I don't know if just this optimistic piece that I'm trying to get out of there because I want to be real. I want reality. I don't want optimism. I don't want pessimism. I want reality. And there's this piece of me inside that says the Saints are actually going to be good this year. And I don't know why. I don't know why. And I keep asking that, and I do talk to myself. I mean, people don't lie out there. These people, you people watching, you talk to yourself too. I know how it is. But there's this piece of me that thinks that this team can be good. And I know because they have the pieces to be good. I know the offensive line stinks, but if you look at the rest of the team, other than offensive line, I mean, completely realistic, other than offensive line, this team is good enough to at least go to the playoffs and win this crappy division.
But they also were last year, right? And they found ways to not get there. And look,
why am I thinking like that?
It's not hard to make that jump. Look, for the last 17 years, they have generally been better than people thought. If you bet on slightly more optimistic than the rest of the world thought since 2006, you would have been right almost all the time. The Saints, you're conditioned to see a team that has outplayed its disbelievers for a long, and through the Jim Mora era. I mean, you're talking about not even that big of a window where they didn't.
But not lately. They have
90. No, but you're talking about 2 years. Like you're conditioned over 17 years.
You're right.
To believe they're going to be a little better. Like that's not. It doesn't take long. Like you believe what you're conditioned to believe, and you're conditioned.
That is a really good point, but I guess that's why it's easier. I think, and I've said this before too, but you think about 9-8 last year and how everyone says it's like the end of the world. It's doomsday. This is the worst team ever. Blow this crap up. I'm tired of watching. And if you take that team from last year and you move it back to 1997,
yeah,
the city would have been ecstatic. I mean,
or 1982,
or 19,
and
sure.
It would have been the greatest thing you had ever seen in your life.
There's no doubt about it. I know a lot of people watch the show aren't old like us, but
yeah, I get it. That was the difference, though. People back then, the Saints were so bad that you were conditioned to believe that they were worse than they were going to be, and it took New Orleans a long time. It took Jim Mora years of winning before people believed, hey, I think we're pretty good. But whereas we were always, they're going to fall apart, and because that's we were conditioned for so long. Now we're conditioned to teams. Sean Payton brought a winning program for a long time, and we're conditioned to believe they're going to be in contention every year.
Think about how many games you watched as a teenager into your 20s and maybe even into your early 30s when you watched a Saints game and the Saints would be up by 2 touchdowns, and all you could think to yourself is, how the hell are they going to blow it today? I mean, that's what, and if the other team would score a touchdown, you'd automatically, here we go. Yeah.
It's my whole childhood. I mean, I bring up the season when the season opener against Atlanta when I was a kid. My dad had season tickets. He was an original season
ticket. The Russell
Erskine
game?
No. Way before then. They lost 62-7 on the season opener. Try to have some optimism after you're 62-7 in the season opener. Yeah, I want to say I was like 10 or 9.
Yeah, I was 11. Only like 4 or 5.
And that's like literally in my world at that age, the only 2 things I cared about were playing football and watching football. And the season opener, you're losing 62-7.
That's true. Chris, you were born in 1985. That's the year I graduated from high school. So good. I can appreciate that. I'm glad we got.
Only knows good football.
That's right. The
worst he knows is, I guess, the Ditka years are bad. The Ditka years, those 4 years.
He grew up with the Ditka years. Yeah, we
lived in Pensacola, and that was when I was doing sports in Pensacola. And so those 4 years, I wasn't covering the Saints. I watched every game, but I wasn't as involved as certainly I was all the years before that and all the years after that. Those were that's my 4-year window.
Speaking
and
of
it was horrible, I'm guessing. Yeah.
Speaking of the Ditka days, and I don't know why I'm getting off topic here, but it came across my feed somewhere the other day of the Tim Couch Hail Mary and Ditka laying on the carpet. And that is one of the last Saints games I did not see live. I was in New England. My sister lives in Massachusetts, and they had like a foot of snow, and the power was out. So I couldn't see any NFL that day. It's that was, I think, 1997. It was either 97 or 98, somewhere around there. 97, I think. That might be the last Sunday where I didn't see any football live.
Wow.
So 31, whatever. Yeah, I can't add. Not quite 30 years ago. So that's a long time.
I don't think I've had any Sunday when I didn't see the Saints game. I mean, almost my whole life.
That's the last. I think that's the last one I didn't see live. I think it is.
I think there were a couple that were blacked out, back in the day when games.
Yeah, but before that, though, I don't know if maybe we had some like that. But I think I went to most of them until.
Oh yeah, my dad was an original season ticket holder.
Yeah.
We were on Tulane Stadium with the first row of the upper deck. I remember games I would bring a bag of confetti, because I'm a kid.
Oh yeah,
I'd throw the confetti on touchdowns and it would fall on the people beneath us. And
Oh, you were the one.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I was a kid and I loved it. I'd spend all week ripping up newspapers. And I remember games where it's the fourth quarter and I have like a Schwegmann's bag of confetti, which I don't know how tall that is, 18 inches. And I'd still have like 16 inches of confetti left in the fourth quarter because I hadn't had a chance to throw it. And I remember in the fourth quarter just like throwing it randomly.
Yeah, people don't realize we were fans long before we were sports talk people and sports writers and all that shit. Rocky asked, "Do we get help?" He means on the offensive line before the start of the season. He says Bakhtiari.
I mean,
doesn't look like it.
Saying that, like we had to get past June 1st, and then there were really nothing on June. After that, I don't see it at this point unless the Saints get an injury. I mean, I thought the same thing. And we kept saying, once the bargains get better, they're going to start jumping on some of the bargains. I mean, you talked about Bakhtiari one of the times
I still think they should sign him. He's still sitting there.
Sure, but if
I don't understand it.
If they were going to, wouldn't they have by now?
Probably.
I mean, this team, they're not indecisive with anything they've ever done. So if they were going to go get the guy, I think they would have. Maybe I'm wrong, but I did the same thing. I'm waiting. Oh, yeah, after we get past, the first 2 weeks and the prices go down. Oh, yeah, after we get past June 1st. And just based on evidence, I think they're saying, no, we're going to play these.
The Saints are like me with my relationship with my first wife. Stubborn to the point that it's going to get you kicked out of the GD house. I mean, stop being so damn stubborn because that's what they are. That's where we are right now because this is all ties in. It's the same thing. We talk about Dennis Allen. It talks about offensive line. I think they really believe that they don't need help on the offensive line.
No, I think that's what it is. I don't agree with stubborn. I think stubborn in the sense that they believe what they believe, but I don't think they're like, I think they think, we like our group and we're going to play this group. And look, the one thing the Saints did do was they got much more financially, look towards the future financially. They did take care of some things that does open up being more financially viable going forward. Your salary cap is not going to be in the kind of hell they've been in because you didn't overspend this year. I guess that's a good thing, but I mean, right now, you just want to win right now while you got a roster of 30-plus-year-olds.
Yeah, we've been saying that. They're in win right now mode. I think, and I'm not exaggerating, I think we've been saying that since like 2018. They're in win now because, and I hate to keep using this phrase because people make fun when you use this phrase, but it's true. Stop kicking the goddamn can down the road. I mean, that's what they're doing.
Well, that's what they stopped doing this year.
That's what they stopped doing.
This is the right year to do that because you've got the aging roster. You might want to take your best shot, but yeah, at some point,
that can is rusty and moldy, and if you tried to drink water out of it, you'd probably die of toxic poisoning in 5 minutes. I mean, stop kicking the damn can. Seriously. All right, Jerry doesn't agree with me. He says no, the Saints are getting younger. They're not too old. I mean, I love you, Jerry, but I don't know where you get that. Look, I don't know what the actual number is going to be. We'll see when they start the season. The number will go down. They won't be the oldest team in the NFL starting-wise when they start the season because of some different moves and because Ryan Ramczyk's probably not going to start. Talifuaga is probably going to start. So they won't be the oldest team. But you still got to think they're going to be in the bottom 7 or bottom 8.
Yeah. I don't think there's any question about it. And a lot of the guys you're counting on in the biggest ways. And look, Alvin Kamara's not – he is old by his position.
Well, if you're assuming Alvin Kamara's going to be there, we never even got that for topics. Right. How long are we going to be talking when training camp starts? How long are we going to be talking about Alvin Kamara?
Yes, I think that's one of those that's a bigger deal outside of the building than it is in the building. I think Kamara is going to be playing and on this team. But a lot of the guys you're counting on are older guys. You don't?
I think Alvin Kamara doesn't give one hot damn whether he plays football this year or not. If they don't give him, I don't know what the number is, but I think if they don't give him what he wants, he says, all right, I'm going to pull a baby here and just watch TV on Sundays for a year.
I don't think you're right, and I hope you're not right, but yeah, I guess we'll find out.
Alvin Kamara is a different kind of dude. He's not your average Joe. I think he's got
no, and there's 100% truth to that. Yes.
We talked about top storylines heading into training camp. Well, there's no question that's the number one story heading into training camp because I don't think it's going to get resolved in the next 9 days. I hope I'm wrong.
Oh, no.
I hope they do it this afternoon and I come on Wednesday and say, oh, I was wrong about that one. But I don't see it.
Yeah. My gut says you're wrong and that he's going to play and he's going to be fine. Alvin Kamara knows, he knows the age of running backs and where he sits. He's in a prove-it time of his career. I'm sure he knows that. I think Kamara is going to be on the field and whatever.
Remember Ricky Williams stepping away and going kumbaya?
Well, Ricky Williams, Alvin Kamara is not different the way Ricky Williams was.
No, he's not that different, but
nobody is. Yeah.
Well, that's true. I don't know if Alvin Kamara does yoga or not, and whatever. Jeff says he thinks 7T later said spot on. Obviously, he doesn't want to spit on me. I hope not. Over the better, but DA is not the kind of leader that gets overachievement out of his players. Look, I'm going to say this, and if the the biggest problem that I think DA has had the first 2 years as a head coach is that he has had, and I'm sorry, Pete Carmichael, but that was not the answer. And the fact that they held on to him for a second season last year is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
But he brings in a Clint Kubiak and a veteran, I think, offensive core of assistant coaches that I think are going to make a big difference. Okay. I don't know if the talent's enough to make it a big difference, but I think they're going to make a big difference. And now I think that's going to help him. I think that's going to help him more than anybody knows.
Well, I do think he's taken ownership of it now. They were running Sean Payton's offense, and he had sort of given up that half of the team.
Absolutely.
Now he's owning that's part of the team. I'll tell you what he did get, and people got aggravated when I said this over and over last year, was he got maximum effort out of his team. That team didn't quit on him down in games. The Detroit game, they absolutely could have quit.
100%.
Came flying back in the second half. The Rams game, they didn't quit. That team plays hard for him consistently, and in situations, the Minnesota game, when they could have given up and tossed it in, and they fight back. He hasn't gotten any overachievement. I agree with that. You're right with that opinion, but he has gotten maximum effort. That team plays for him, and maybe we'll see if that can help. Look, I'm trying to find.
And look, I will say this. All of that contradicts what I say, and I have been saying, and I still kind of believe that he's kind of lost the locker room. Well, what you just said, and it's a fact.
Definitely is not lost.
What you said is absolutely true. They did not quit in a single game last year.
And I guess that's a point I was spinning around in circles.
But I think there was player division among, all the crap with Jameis last year, and I know he's gone now, but obviously the players love Jameis Winston for a reason.
He's easy to like.
And the franchise, for some reason, didn't. Why they brought him back last year, I have no idea.
Yeah, why they brought him back and Pete Carmichael back. Look, I know why you brought
$8 million on him.
He's super talented. I know why you brought him back, but they also knew it was going to be a distraction problem if things didn't go right. And it did become it was too much of a talking point for the organization. And bringing Pete Carmichael back, they just didn't have a better idea, was clearly a mistake. Look, and I'll say this too: the organization feels the frustration of the fan base in a way.
When you watch the crowd, like they hadn't been a crowd like that since the Ditka days. It was embarrassing.
This current administration had never felt the weight of an angry Saints fan base. Look, everybody in this administration has been here for at least 15 years, so they all live here. They all have friends here. They all live in the New Orleans community, and they hear it and they felt it, and I could see it in them, and they talked about it. The weight of the anger, I think it was anger and frustration. They felt every bit of that, and I think that is why the offensive coordinator change happened, because they felt that weight. And I do think that might be why, if Dennis Allen doesn't get over the hump and at least get to the playoffs, they would make a change.
That's exactly why.
Because they feel that weight and I don't think they have felt that weight at any point since Sean Payton arrived since Katrina. And these people weren't in charge pre-Katrina. It's the first time they're feeling, oh my God, people are we're not walking on clouds.
Exactly.
People They are living on real
They're
earth.
not defending us on social media anymore. They're not
Correct.
telling the Derry
Correct.
Downers of the world you're a moron. No,
Correct.
they're saying you're a moron because you're too high on them.
Correct.
What you just said is exactly right, and that's why
what makes this season different.
That's why you're 2 or 3. Your prediction of 0 to 5, hot seat 2 or 3 on Dennis Allen. That's why the fans are actually right. That's why it's
3.5. Right.
No, it's 4.5. His ass is on fire right now. I can tell you right now, if you look side of the screen, Cowboys, Eagles, Falcons, Chiefs, Bucks, if they lose the potentially, I'm not going to say they're going to, but if they go 1-5, start 1-5, and that's assuming they beat the Panthers, because the Panthers are a lot better than they were. His ass is on fire, and I'm talking about fire. He's going to get fired if he goes 1-5. I don't think they can survive. And I think they potentially could make it. This would be a first. I mean, first since in the Benson days. They don't fire coaches in the middle of a season. Right. I think that if they're 2-7 or something along that line, I think he's gone.
Mid-season. Yeah. I would have said that wasn't possible before. And people were saying that last year, and I didn't think it was possible last year. But you might be right. It might actually be possible. Although, excuse me, although they know how tough the beginning of that schedule is. I think I don't think they would fire him at 1-5. I would think they would let it get past that.
All right, 2-7, he's getting fired.
They would give him a chance to right the ship out, because your hardest chunk is at the beginning. You know that those first 5 games are your real toughest part. So you let him come out of that and see what comes out of that, no matter what. But yeah, but to me, that is the biggest difference. Is I'm positive, and I know for a fact, that the management of this team, everyone in that front office, feels the weight of.
They saw that Lions blue in the front. They saw the Detroit Lions blue filling up the plaza. They saw those Giants fans filling up the plaza. They saw all those Falcons fans in the dome. That's not what the dome is supposed to be. They're not going to take that again. I mean, look, money talks, brother.
It's everywhere, though. You're right. It's on social media, and I think you said it perfectly. They're not being defended. They're being criticized.
Exactly.
Right.
I'm telling you, if you back in those years when I was doing a show and in 15 and 16 14, 15, 16 or 15, 16, 17, whenever it was, the 3 years where they went 7-9 3 years in a row, even that third year, if you said something bad about the Saints, fans would get pissed off at you and tell you were wrong. They're not telling you that anymore. And they went 7-10 and 9-8. They had a winning season, and people are still saying this team sucks. So I'm just saying, no one's defending them anymore.
You and I know that. I know you and I know that because we live that. What I'm saying is, I didn't really know if management of the Saints felt that they were so insulated or isolated from the rest of the world. But I am positive that they have heard and feel that now, and that is very different. And I don't even want to have this conversation right now.
But you have to.
I know, but I want to like be excited about.
When are you going to have it in October?
Excited about coming out of the gate and surprising, going 2-2 in those first 4 and feeling much better. And
the media has been blowing smoke up this team's ass for way too long now. Let's get real, okay? So Jeff Duncan, and we've talked about this you and I have talked about this many times, but Jeff Duncan before the season does a poll of all the media members who cover the Saints on a regular basis. There are 28 of them, okay? And of the 28, so 28 plus 28 is 56. You know how many people picked the under out of 56 the last 2 seasons? And I'm not included, and I didn't pick the under anyway.
I like this. No, tell me.
One last year picked the under. Picked the under 9.5 last year. One. I think it was Ed Daniels. And the year before that, no one. Not a single soul picked the under 7.5. That's why Vegas wins. They know what they're talking about. The over-under 7.5 this year. And I'm not falling for the trap again. If I'm wrong this year, then I'm wrong. But I'm not picking over 7.5 because you can't do it because Vegas knows and the media doesn't. They're wrong almost every time. And I'm not falling for this crap again. I hope I'm wrong. But I don't, you know what? I don't think it's going to be as rosy sunshine as it's been with predictions this year.
Yeah, I get it. But again, I'll go back to what I said like 8 minutes ago. Like the reason is because the Saints have overperformed more than they haven't over the last 17 years, and you can get conditioned to this team being pretty good.
Absolutely true.
And the adjustment hasn't happened yet. I'm curious if the predictions this year sort of adjust back for the first time since Sean Payton arrived.
I think they're going
to. If you had done the predictions in like 1984, it would all been, we're going to be 3-11.
I bet I will. I'm going to give you an over/under right now. Of those 28 media members, and it may be 26 and it may be 30, I don't know. But let's just say there are 28. I'm going to give you an over/under right now. I will tell you that there won't be more than 2 people who pick under 7.5. Yeah, and I think that might be high because
the real reason, Jim. The real reason, not the
they want to sell. They want to sell sponsor media.
Well, yeah, but you also, if you're the guy preseason picking the Saints to be terrible, you're going to be like you're gonna still at this point get a certain amount of hate. And
I do.
Those of us in this business, somehow you ride the hate wave. Somehow,
but it's not hate. It's not all hate.
You can't have people hate. No, right, but you can't have in a mainstream market, you can't have more than half the audience hating you.
I'm going to be honest. Look, of course I want ratings, and my title sponsor, my friends at Evangeline Securities, might not. Actually, Nick Braden probably does want me to say this because Nick and I have formed a friendship, and I'll just say it anyway. I don't give a damn what people think about me. I really don't. I want them to watch the show, but you know what? If they hate you, they're going to watch anyway. I mean, there are lots of people, and I'm not going to mention any names. There are plenty of people on TV that I hate and want to watch to see what they're saying. Now, there are people I hate that I can't even stand the sound of their voice.
Right.
But there are people that I hate, and I hate's a strong word, that I dislike on TV. But I still watch them because I want to hear what they're going to say. And you know what? You can still respect somebody even if you don't like them. And I'm just trying to tell you what I think is the truth. So.
Sure. Yeah, I get it. I get it. I do think we've seen the team be better than they were supposed to be, and that gets in your head over 17 years.
I hope everyone's right.
And I think it's going to. I think that's going to adjust backwards. Granted, I'm not sure how many are going under 7.5, but
hardly anyone.
At this of the 28, see how many pick 10 or more wins, and I bet it's like 2 or 3, maybe.
I know one show that. I know one show that I listen to that there ain't nobody picking under 8.5. There might be nobody picking under 9.5. I'm not going to mention any names, but they also have a podcast and you have to pay to listen to them. But I'm not going to mention any names. I'm just going to leave it at that. Rocky says 3-3 heading into the Denver game. That's a little strong. I think if they're 3-3, then I'm going to say this. This is no BS. If this team goes 3-3 through those first 6 games, they have a legit chance to win 10 games.
Oh, yeah, for sure. 3-3 would be awesome with the schedule coming up after that.
So I would take 3-3 right now. Chris.
3-3 right now, it means we're going to have a fun season.
Kennedy's love you. I think he means you, Doug.
No.
All right, we're gonna end your portion. We're gonna end the portion of. I am gonna end on a positive note here because I do think this. When you look at this schedule and we talk about how tough it's brutal. Okay, when you go by projected win totals, and you know that's how I do my schedule. When you go by projected win totals, the first 6 games of this schedule, the Saints have a tougher 6-game stretch than the team that has the number one, the toughest schedule for the entire season, which is the Steelers. And it's not even close, to be honest. Now, I'm going to say this, though. If you go through, while I think the Panthers will be better than everyone projects,
I don't.
You don't? Okay.
No, and I didn't last year. Everyone said that last year. As long as your owner is a train wreck, your chances of getting better.
I think Dave Canales is. I like Dave Canales.
David Tepper might be the worst owner in American sports.
I forgot how much you hated David Tepper.
He is such a train wreck of a human owner that I don't think you can win. I don't think you can win in any commercial business with ownership that's that bad.
Gabe says it's not
throwing cups of water on its fans.
Gabe's back there saying it's not even close. He thinks Jerry Reinsdorf.
Oh, okay, but look at Tepper's.
But they're on the same plane, though.
Yes. Okay, sure. You can make that.
So the safest prediction
is bananas bad.
The safest prediction I will ever make on this show is that Doug Mouton will not be a sports director in Charlotte. anytime soon.
Well, I mean, it would be fun. Boy, you'd be, No, look,
you'd be doing podcasts.
Look, Charlotte is maybe
be doing podcasts too.
Personality.
Well, I don't want to say anything too mean about Charlotte. I don't look. I love Charlottetown. I just don't want to say anything too mean about the Panthers, because I do want to have one thing I want to do this year is get someone from the opposition on a show throughout the season, maybe on a Wednesday or whatever. No, I'm not going to yell. No, I'm not going to be like that.
You should.
I yell at you.
Derry, no, do it. Like turn up the Derry.
No, come on.
Oh, do that.
They'll never come back. They'll never come back.
No, they will never come back. You're right. You'll have to find different ones out every time.
You're right. No, but then the word will get on. Don't do that show. He's an asshole. Yeah. All right. All right. So seriously though, if you go through the first part of the schedule now, I don't think the Cowboys are nearly as good as everybody thinks they're going to be. I think their lack of running game and the fact that their offensive line has taken a step backwards in the offseason. So I actually think the Cowboys is a winnable game. Again, I'm trying to find positive through the first 16. This is why I think 3-3 is a possibility. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but Dunk thinks they're going to go 2-4. I think 2-4 is also possible. I just don't think if you look at the Cowboys, somebody gave me grief earlier on a comment on one of my shorts that the Falcons were 7-10 the last 3 seasons. And they're not much different. Well, they got Kirk Cousins, so they are a lot different.
No, but look, I still think the winnable ones on there, the Panthers, that has to be.
They're not going to beat the Eagles or Chiefs. So
I think the Falcons or Bucks, you split those two, and I think certainly you should be in both of those games. I think you take one of those two, and you're 2-4 coming out of that. And then
Cowboys, I'm telling you right now, the Cowboys is a winnable game.
That'd be a bonus, sure.
Rocky says Panthers, Cowboys, Falcons. I think that's a possibility. I would say Panthers, if they're going to win 3, if you told me right now they're going to win 3, I would say Panthers, Cowboys, Bucks.
I would say Panthers, Falcons, Bucks.
You'd say Panther, Falcons, Bucks. Okay. A-Town says, let's me, you, and Doug put our pennies together and buy the Saints organization. Yeah. I'm sorry, but I don't think our 3 pennies are going to add up to $3 billion, because that's what the Saints are worth right now.
I don't know how much fun that would be. I mean, God, I'd be so stressed out 24/7.
Let me just tell you,
if I had that kind of money, I'd just be buying houses. You know what I mean?
If I had that kind of money, my ass would be retiring and doing nothing.
That's what I mean. I'd
do nothing. At least in this stage of my life, maybe 20 years ago, but I can tell you right now, I would want to have nothing to do with that.
Yeah, right, I'd be watching on TV, but
then they have podcasts telling me how big of a moron I am, and I don't want that anymore.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah. All right, but seriously, and then before I let you go, real quick, you agree with me though? If they find a way to go 3-3,
3-3 would be
they're going to the playoffs.
I don't think there's any question about it, because that means if you go 3-3 with that first 6, that means you've solved some of your offensive questions. That means the offensive line's playing well. That means the defense has taken a step forward. To go 3-3 against that part of the schedule, which you already said is the hardest chunk of schedule that you're going to find. Oh, absolutely. Then I think you've proven what you can do at that point. I'm looking at that saying, if you're 2-4, you're in the hunt. Now, obviously, you got to get better than 2-4.
Yeah.
But that part of the schedule is brutal.
Yeah. All right. Before I let you go, I've got a comment and a question. Okay.
Yeah.
The comment, Robbo says the Saints go 7-10 and hire a new coach. I think if they go 7-10, I think there's zero question there will be a new coach next year. That is my question.
I don't know about zero question, but I would say it's a 94% chance they're getting a new coach.
All right. And last, the question before we let you go that you have to answer here: would you be a better owner than Tepper?
Oh, without question. Without question. I think you would be too. Anyone who knows how to hire people and let them do their job. That's all you got to do. If you're the owner, all you need to do is hire someone and let them do their job. And that's exactly what all bad franchises
and go to the suite, drink beer, eat popcorn.
It's what Tom Benson did when he bought the Saints. Yeah. For the first time, they had an owner that bought a team, hired Jim Finks, and said, "You know what, Jim? I'm going to go deal with my car dealership. You run this football team. Next thing you know, they're in the playoffs.
Then they had like Q Herrick and all of those.
David, they were in the playoffs consistently for the first time in franchise history. It's the one thing Tepper won't do. And I knew all the numbers. I don't know them off the top of my head because I didn't know we were going to go there. Look at the number of coaches he's had. It's crazy. Look at the number of winning seasons since he bought the team. Then before he bought the team, he has literally taken that franchise off of a cliff. And look, I'm seeing a free fall. I'm not betting on somehow that free fall turning around.
That's me winding you up. So it doesn't take much. So from now on, if I want to wind you up, if we're at a draft and you get mad like you got in the last baseball draft,
because he had made all the money as the hedge fund guy, he bought the team. I'm smarter than all these people. When it comes to football, the fact is, you know what? You're kind of not, and that's what happened.
All right, if you get mad like you got mad in the last baseball draft, I'm going to bring up Tepper.
Okay, yeah, right. There we go. All right, fair enough.
Although
in that league, I'm doing okay.
Yeah, I'm not. I keep thinking. Your
team has gotten much better.
It's definitely gotten better, and I've been trying to add to it.
Or are you going to get back in?
Oh no, I love it. I enjoy it. Yeah,
just for people to. I started, me and my friend Joe Mouton, we started a 16-team baseball league that's head-to-head every week. We played 12 categories, and it was no keepers. It was just a snake draft with randomly picked spots, and you got a huge roster, and 16 teams going head-to-head every week. And to me, it's a blast. I mean, my head-to-head this week came down to Eugenio Suarez was the last guy playing on Sunday.
Yeah.
And Dave Farrell was 1/1000th of a point ahead of me in on-base percentage. If Eugenio goes 1 for 4 or 2 for 4, I win that. We go 6 for 6. Turns out Eugenio went 3 for 4, and Farrell beat me 7-5. So, and I find it so much fun watching.
Wow.
One start can save you.
I will say this: it's gotten me to watch more than I was watching before because I never, you and I are in NL.
Yeah, because those Sunday starts mean everything. And look, I drafted Paul Skeens in that league. I also drafted Dylan Cruz. I took him late, and I said, you know what? I want to have Paul Skeens in one league so I can follow him, and he's been a dream. I'm starting him every week now and riding that pony.
All right. Eric says he really thinks they will compete in every game. They have the talent. Look, they have the talent. I just don't.
Yeah, I'm
trying to be realistic. I'm not falling for it again. All right, Doug, I'm going to end it real quick. Oh, wait. Gabe wants to know, did you see the video of Tepper's wife in the war room?
Oh, no, I didn't. I did not.
We might have to get we might have to show that.
Gabe also asked about Mike Thomas, and I think the fact that no one signed Mike Thomas answers the question of Mike Thomas at this point.
A lot of answers.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's going to sign Mike Thomas.
No, both from an ability and what he will do to your locker room. I think you're seeing now he still might get signed someplace.
Maybe.
But I think the reason why you haven't seen anybody jumping in on Mike Thomas is A, because of the ability, and B, because of his Twitter feed.
You going to California?
I am. I'm going Tuesday, next Tuesday. So in 8 days, and I'm spending the first 2 weeks. Got a little Airbnb.
Enjoy the weather, my friend.
Yeah, I do. I've made that trip. You know, the Saints have trained there, obviously, for a while, for a week. And I've made that trip 5 or 6 times. I love going. Hey, look, it's a great break.
I'm jealous that you're going. I'm jealous that you're going there. I'm not jealous of the work that you have to do while you're there.
Yeah, no, it's a lot. It's a lot. But look, the good thing is you're there, and that's all you have to do. And you get that from the player standpoint too. Like there's nothing else to worry about but that. And I do think you can be more focused and get more done because that's all you have. Nobody's looking to go home. You know, you're not trying to rush out of there because something's at home.
Have they built your star yet? Have they put your star up on the boardwalk yet?
What are you talking about?
The stars.
Yeah.
They give you a star?
Have you met me? Yeah, right.
Doug Mouton, I will definitely have you on before this season starts. Thank you for coming on as always.
Oh no, and you're coming on 4th down on 4, but not until I get back. I want the most relevant preseason.
You got it.
The problem with you, I love having you on to talk Saints, but I also want to have you on to talk LSU. And doing both in one show is just too much. So I don't know.
You got it. You know, you ask, and I will drive down to North Rampart Street.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. All right, Jim. Pleasure.
Talk to you soon. All right, Doug Mouton. Always fun. Always a pleasure. See, I can just be myself when Doug is on the show. I mean, I'm not saying I can't be myself when everyone's on the show, but it's a little bit different. I feel more comfortable just letting loose when Doug's on the show. I just do. There were a couple comments that we missed. Let's see. Robbo says he was the first game in 1967. I was not born yet, Robbo. That was a year before I was born. The Saints have been rebuilding ever since. Oh, come on. I know you're joking. That's a little harsh. They did win the Super Bowl once. They did go to the NFC Championship game 3 times. One of them I'm trying to put out my mind and forget about. Still pissed. LSU's big question mark this year. I think they're going to be pretty good if their defense is good. Let's see. Let me put it this way. If their defense is average, I think they're going to be good. The defense doesn't have to be good. Harold Perkins has to be a stud, and the secondary has to be like maybe the 8th best secondary in the SEC. Is that possible? Yes. Will it happen? I don't know. I'm not ready to give a prediction on LSU just yet. I want to wait on that. Gabe says Brian Kelly said today this is the deepest team he has had in 3 years, and you know what? I believe him. Robbo, thank you. You know, one thing, it's like Phil Anselmo says in the Open. He says it the way that it is, or at least the way that he thinks it is. I don't try to pull punches. If I think something's good, I'm going to tell you it's good. If I think something's bad, I'm going to tell you it's bad. And you know what? I'm not trying to have an ego here, but I'm right about 90% of the time. Okay? I mean, sometimes I'm not right. I mean, you go back and look, and we're about to do NFL previews starting on Friday. And I'm going to be straight up. We're going to do division by division. We're going to do a division every Friday. And the way I'm going to start off every segment, is I'm going to show you what I predicted last year for that division, their record. And I'm going to show you what they, and some of them I was really right, like perfectly right. And some of them, Houston Texans, Gabe Henderson, I was really wrong. And I will tell you when I'm wrong. See, that's the difference between me and some other podcast. Again, I don't want to mention any names. You know who they are. You don't have to pay for this podcast. I mean, but there are other podcasts out there that sometimes they don't tell you the exact. Some of them, I don't even think they tell you the way they really feel. That's where I have a problem with certain podcasts. Look, if you think everything is roses and sunshine, then if you really believe that, then sure. I mean, I'm going to say, okay, you're a little bit too much for me, but that's fine. At least you're telling them what you think. If you don't think they're going to be roses and sunshine, and you can read through it. Look, I played poker long enough in my life that I know when somebody's blowing smoke up my keister and they don't really mean it. And I listen to enough podcasts. And look, if you're blowing smoke up my keister and you don't believe it, I ain't going to listen to you. Okay? It's just that simple. So tell me what you think, even if it's bad. Don't tell me you think they're going to be good because that's what you think people want to hear and they're going to come back to your show. And if you say they're bad, people aren't going to come back. Well, you know what? If you don't want to hear that the Saints are going to be bad and that's what I think on that particular day or month or season or whatever, then don't listen because I'm going to tell you what I think. We don't have to agree. Just because I think they're going to be bad and you think they're going to be good, we could still talk to one another. I'll have whatever comment. Well, somebody, I think it was Chris. Was it Chris? Maybe not. Chris, if it wasn't you, I'm sorry. But somebody said they're going to go 17-0. Whoever it is, whatever. They're not going to go half of that. But if you're right, I'm going to have you on the show, pal. You know what I'm going to do right now before we get to the extra point, because it's a good extra point. I don't want anybody to leave. Please stick around for the extra point. But first, let me tell you more about how Evangeline Securities can help you figure out what your family or privately owned business might be worth and whether it's time to sell. How do they do it? Well, I told you this. You know it. After their complimentary valuation of your company, if you decide to proceed, if you decide to proceed, native New Orleanians Nick Braden, Ron Hemelt, and folks at Evangeline will begin an extensive auction process among established private equity funds from around the world, and they will maximize the return process for the founder and his or her family. The key word here is return. Sort of like I expect the Saints to do with these new kickoff rules this season. Because if you're looking for one big positive on this team is I think they will most certainly take advantage of the new rules as much as any team in the NFL. Wait a minute. I digress. Sorry. I was talking about Evangeline Securities. And they are going to kick return. They are going to outkick the coverage because they're the top producer on their platform with very few companies like them in this area and none with their dedication and success. They are fully licensed and ready to serve you. So get in touch with Nick and Ron about what is really important the rest of your life. You can find them at www.evangelinesecurities.com. Okay. For today, and thank you, Rocky. Thank you very much. Your favorite podcast. I appreciate that. You, and normally I would say you and my wife, but I'm not even my wife's favorite podcast. She doesn't listen anymore. Apparently I make her and the kids, I make their ears bleed, whatever that means. That kind of hurt my feelings a little bit. Sigh. I'll get over it. For today's extra point, we pay tribute to a local football star who had maybe the most dynamic 11 seconds in the history of the NFL. On the night the lights went out in New Orleans 11 and a half years ago, Jacoby Jones became a catalyst to leading the Baltimore Ravens Super Bowl 47 victory in his hometown. Not only did he catch a 56-yard touchdown pass from Joe Flacco late in the second quarter to open a 3-score lead over the San Francisco 49ers, but he started the second half with a record that will never be broken. Officially, it's a 108-yard kickoff return for a touchdown, but I agree with Jim Nantz. I'm going to give him the extra yard. You take a look and you tell me what you think.
To the Eagles, and later on it was Lombardi bringing him out to the Raiders. Jim Harbaugh, that is. And there's going to be a run back from 9 deep for Jacoby Jones. And look at him go. Jones is past the 50, and he is flying inside the 20, and a kickoff return, 109 yards and a touchdown, an all-time record. There have been 108-yard returns in league history, never 109, and what a way to bolt right out of the locker room to start the second half.
Jim, both you and I could not believe he was bringing it out of the end zone that deep. It was a line drive kick. I think that's what he did. He gauged it that it was that way, but he got himself in good position going forward as the football was caught, and the open lane up inside. Couldn't tell who got out of the lane going down there, but we've heard.
Not long after the lights infamously went out in the Superdome, and the Niners charged back. And when the totality of the Ravens' 34-31 Super Bowl victory was added up, it's clear they couldn't have done it without Jones. But that was just the moment for the world to see. We saw much more than that from Jacoby Jones here. As former St. Aug teammate and friend Earl Cager explained to our Rod Walker, Jacoby, quote, was always the energy of the situation and a real jokester. He was a great teammate and a great person to be around. Rod said the ex-Purple Knight and Abramson Commodore was always the life of the party and that he loved to laugh. Jacoby Jones shockingly and suddenly passed away Sunday in his New Orleans home just 3 days after his 40th birthday, and 4 days after he was inducted into the Hall of Fame of the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, having played at Lane College in Jackson, Tennessee. He had spent the past 2 seasons as a receivers coach at Alabama State, working for fellow New Orleanian Eddie Robinson Jr. Just a few months ago, he was named head coach of an arena football team. He spent 9 seasons in the NFL and was an all-pro receiver and returner in 2012. Jacoby was loved in his hometown and by just a Unfortunately for me, I was covering news when he was playing prep football here in New Orleans, so I never got to see him play at Tad Gormley or Pan American stadiums. But if you scroll through the long length of stories published with his name in it, you'll see the impact he had on just about everyone and anyone who either watched him play or spent any time with him. Indeed, Jacoby Jones was taken away from us way too soon. But he will remain in the lore of local stars who shine in this great city, and he will remain in the hearts of many New Orleanians for decades to come. That is going to wrap it up for us here on this Monday. I want to thank today's guest, Doug Mouton, and of course, Gabe Henderson behind the scenes in Houston doing his thing. He's not doing it in his house yet. Still no power. Let's say a little prayer that he can get back in his house soon. A-Town, thank you, my friend. Jerry, awesome show. Talking about Jacoby. Same age as you, going too soon, without a doubt. Way too soon. We hope you can join us on Wednesday. We will welcome in another TV guy. Why not? From Doug Mouton on Channel 4 to Fletcher Mackel with Channel 6. That is coming up on Wednesday. We might even talk a little Pelicans. Who knows? Run the gamut. Make sure you join us on Wednesday. A reminder to subscribe to our Dattitude YouTube page and click the little bell to receive notifications when we go on the air live. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, and many more. And always find a replay of the show on NOLA.com/sports. That will do it for us today. Everyone have a great couple days. Stay out of this gosh darn ridiculous heat. Is it September yet? No. We'll see you Wednesday. Take it easy, my friends.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.